All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks again to all for joining us today for our session, Inside Parking at George Mason University. My name is Michael Somm, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. If you have any questions during the session, please direct them to me via the chat, and we will get them answered during our Q&A session at the end. This webinar is part of our new CAD series, which is features members of our Customer Advisory Board. Our Customer Advisory Board is a group of customers and industry thought leaders that help guide the T2 product roadmap, as well as provide feedback on our current solutions. Presenting today from George Mason University is Josh Cantor. He is the Director of Parking and Transportation, and he's going to be talking about how T2's Citation Services solution have offered them benefits over the past several years. So without further ado, I'll let Josh take it away.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me and joining all of us here with T2. My name is Josh Cantor. Again, I'm the Director of Parking and Transportation here at George Mason. I've been here for 11 years, and I've actually been a customer of T2's for about 13 or 14 years, going back to my days with Cal State Fullerton before coming to George Mason. So, longtime user of the various T2 products. Just to give you guys some background on George Mason University, we are actually the largest four-year institution in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We actually have multiple campuses spread out in the Northern Virginia area, which is part of the larger D.C. metropolitan region. We're just to the west of Washington, D.C. Again, we have our largest campus is our Fairfax campus. We have campuses in Arlington, and we have also another campus in Prince William County, just another 15 miles to our west. So again, we're all part of the D.C. area. We also have multiple sites throughout Virginia and throughout Northern Virginia that we're also responsible for as well. Our enrollment this last fall was just a tad over 34,000, with 27,000 of those students having class at Fairfax. Some students do go back and forth. We have nearly 6,500 students that live on campus, and we have nearly 7,000 employees spread out across our multiple campuses and sites. So just here's a little map of the Fairfax campus. So we're actually a pretty concentrated campus with with various lots and garages, which I'll get into. So just to give a little idea of the demographics of our parking operations, we're a little unique in the university market in that we outsource our operations to SP Plus, formerly known as Standard Parking. We have about 55 contracted staff and 3 university staff. So on the university side, it's just myself and 2 others as far as full-time employees that oversee the contracted staff. We have 15,783 parking spaces. I'm sure, like many of you all, that's a number that changes by the day depending on what construction is going on. With the bulk of those at the Fairfax campus with 12,700 at Fairfax, and then we have just a tad over 1,000 at the SciTech campus in Manassas and almost 2,000 spaces at our Arlington campus. We have 6 garages comprising almost 6,000 of those 15,000 parking spaces. Our revenue this year is just a tad over $13 million. The bulk of that through permit revenue, $3.5 million in visitor and meter revenue, and $700,000 in citation revenue. So why use collections? So the university considers citation debt as a legitimate debt owed to the Commonwealth of Virginia. Virginia is one of those states that doesn't forgive debt to any state agency. So we do have multiple avenues at our disposal to help the collections process. We can place student accounts on hold in Banner, which is our university record system, so that way they can't register for class, can't get transcripts, can't drop classes. So many of you all, I'm sure, have that. And that happens after a citation is unpaid after 30 days after issuance. Also, if you're a Virginia resident, we can collect from your tax return. Parking and other entities on campus report to the tax offset board any debts owed to the university, and those are taken from the tax. So we do have other opportunities in which to get compliance and to get our money. However, if you're not a student or you're not a Virginia resident, we really don't have any recourse to collect without using a collection agency. Our process is that we refer debt to the collection agency if a citation is unpaid after 60 days, assuming it's no longer under the appeals process. While collections leads to increased revenue, there have previously been concerns about having a third-party contact customers. Until 2008, Mason had used another collections agency, which I will not name, but we had many issues in using this collection agency. First among them was very poor customer service, which reflected very badly upon the university. It was all kind of the no-nos of the collection world, early and late calls, rude agents. So we'd often get emails and calls to the president's office about, why is George Mason harassing me about parking debt, parking tickets. And then another problem we had was we couldn't track payments in a timely manner. So we used to get a monthly report of what was collected, and then we had to manually update the customer account in Flex. So our account in Flex would still show somebody's ticket as outstanding. The collections agency might have collected on it, but it had not sent us the money, nor had we updated our records. As I mentioned, so the collection fee, also another issue was the collection fee wasn't shown in the letter that was sent to the customer. So there was the appearance of the fee arbitrarily being added. So for instance, you have a $100 parking ticket and a $25 collection fee. They would be notified that now they owe $125, but the letter they received only showed a $100 balance due. So we're not satisfied with the image and the process of the collections agency being used. So we were approached by T2 about using Citation Services, back then known as CCS, but now known as CCS, which is a T2 subsidiary. And we actually then went ahead and implemented the collection citation services shortly after migrating to Flex and having Flexport, back then known as eBusiness, reinstalled when we went from PowerPark Classic to Flex. So the benefits of using CS, of using T2's citation services. The collection fee is added immediately when the citation is transferred to collections. As I described earlier, when we would, under our old agency, we would send out the debt, and then the collection agency would notify the customer that, oh, by the way, you owe X dollars in collection fee. With this process using CS, the collection fee is automatically added when the account is transferred over after 60 days. So the actual correct balance showing the citation balance plus the collection amount reflects in the fee and also within the customer's account. The customer is able to pay citation services, or they can also pay our parking services. They can make payment on the online Flexport console, which was an immense help because, again, as I mentioned earlier, was the fees used to be paid to the collection agency, and about a month later we would be sent a report saying, Josh paid X dollars in a report, and then we would have to manually update it. In this case, with the payment being made and the customer having the option of going online and making their citation payment just the same as they can do within the first 60 days, the Flex account gets updated right away. And also another important point is that with access to Flex, the citation services staff can look up a customer's account. One issue we used to hear a lot was when the old agency would contact customers and say, you owe George Mesa $125. The customer would say, why? And the agency wouldn't really have records of what the parking ticket was about or really have any background. In this case, the staff with Citation Services can look up the account in Flex and show and talk to the customer and explain to them, this is regarding the ticket that was issued on such and such date. Here is the amount. These late fees were added. So they can kind of walk the customer through the entire process that's happened up into that point, where with the old agency, it was just a dollar amount and a person to contact. As I mentioned, very good customer service. That was a real critical issue. As much as the financial situation and the process, I looked at as customer service as really being the most important piece of the collections process, and the agency that we used to use prior to 2008 really reflected very poorly upon the university. As we all know, we're not well liked anyway, so then to have another third-party agency even more poorly represent us did not bid well with the President's office and the general public. So I can say in the 8 years we've been using Citation Services with T2, I can't think of any complaints I've had regarding poor customer service or harassment. So it's hard to put a dollar value on that, but it speaks very well for the professionalism of their staff. And again, a positive image. So even in instances where people don't remember getting the parking ticket or upset about the parking ticket, feel the parking ticket might have been unjust, the image back is that the citation process and the collection process was handled very professionally. So when we actually get emails to compliment us on how professional the process is, even if they didn't like the parking ticket, that's always a good thing for the university. And also through the collection process, it used to be very difficult to contact and follow up with the collection agency. With Citation Services, we have a limited number of accounts that we can remove at no charge each month. So there are occasionally parking tickets that perhaps are correct, but then for whatever reason I have a soft moment and I decide to waive a parking ticket. We have a limited amount of tickets that we can actually follow up with Citation Services and have them remove it from collections. And it's been a really easy process when we contact the Citation Services staff to have an account taken out of collections for whatever reason it may be. So it's handled very quickly and very professionally, and really makes our lives a lot easier when trying to deal with the customer. Another benefit of using Citation Services, T2 being a parking company, they primarily deal with parking collections. With our old agency, parking debt was not their priority. It was generally a lower dollar value than many of the other collection types that they were dealing with, so it wasn't a priority. But being a T2 customer, with CS, it is a priority of theirs to handle our collection process. Citation Services added auto dialer to save resources, so they've been very efficient, which keeps the collection fees and the expenses at a minimum. And just like T2 support, it's easy to get a hold of compared to the old agency. The Christy Boggs and the Citation Services staff is just a phone call or an email away, and it's just like dealing with any other issue that you might have in your parking operations, where with our old agency, it was really, really difficult to get a hold of anybody and then get anybody that could actually help us while we're trying to deal with the customer. So that's really made our lives a lot easier. Just give you all some background on our scope of operations and all that. This is a little chart showing our citation statistics over the last couple of years. And you'll actually notice the number of citations issued going down. Part of it is through better efficiency of ticket writing, and over time, people have learned that we will get you if you have a parking ticket, so less people are taking chances. We've seen better compliance in our permit regulations. So we've actually seen a decrease in the amount of parking tickets being issued over time, but our revenue stream is relatively the same. If you notice that citations resolved column, it's the third column over, it includes tickets that have been reduced to a warning. For us, a lot of our tickets where if you own a permit and you forget it, it falls down, we'll dismiss it or reduce it to a warning one time a semester as a courtesy. So that third column shows the tickets that have been resolved that no longer have an outstanding balance, and it's up in the 90 percentile. So really, as we've gone through with our collection process and other aspects of using our T2 and our Flex products, we're at the point where we have relatively little outstanding citations at the end of a fiscal year. In the first 2 years that we used T2 Citation Services, we went back and made a decision to try to go back and collect debt back 5 years prior, actually going back to before We were on Flex, and back when we were using PowerPart Classic. Well, as I mentioned at the very beginning, debt is not forgiven in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The only way to get debt formally removed is you have to petition the Attorney General's office. We, as a practical matter, said that we don't have a lot of the older information, so if people contacted us and said, you know, why are you calling me, we didn't have enough information kept to be able to really talk to them intelligently. So we made a decision to only kind of pursue debt that was 5 years back. So we're at the time going back to the mid-2000s. But just through that process, we collected probably an additional $300,000 of older debt beyond what we were collecting for each year's citations. And so since then, 48% of all debt that's been sent to Citation Services has been collected. Back in 2011, 62% was collected, and then in 2012 it jumped up to 87%. And during that year, it accounted for 13% of all our paid citations. So really, as they got through a lot of the older debt, the compliance and the amount of debt that we were collecting on current year parking citations kept increasing, as I mentioned, again, and getting to the point where we're really in that 90 percentile range as far as parking tickets that are taken care of. This chart's might be a little bit hard for you all to read, and we can send this out, but this just shows some of the numbers back in 2012, and I'll show here in just a minute our 2015 numbers just for comparison's sake. But it shows the amount of citations that were sent to CCS each month of the year, the amount that was sent to collections, the amount that was collected. It shows the CCS revenue, so that's the collection fee part that CCS now, back then called CCS, collected, and then the GME revenue is the revenue that we got. So again, the numbers were fairly strong, you know, and it really kept increasing, you know, again, to the point where we know for the most part when we issue a legitimate citation that it is going to be collected at one point or another, and that having the CS product really closes the loop on many of that. Now, like probably many of you all experience, people tend to ignore collection letters and things of that nature until they have to register for class. So we often do get many panic phone calls or emails saying, oh yeah, I was contacted by the collections regarding this ticket, and now I can't register for class. So we actually, you know, we do take care of a lot of citations and do see a lot of payments made through the collection process at the time when people are trying to register for class each semester or trying to drop classes if they're trying to get out. So certainly having the university business process of keeping students on hold and with collections really works very well in tandem. These are 2015 numbers. So as again mentioned, we're writing a few less tickets than we previously had done, but the collection rate that we're at is still very consistent. Back in 2012, we had collected 48% of all parking citations that had been sent to CS, where that number is actually up to 53% overall. So again, when we went to Citation Services, we transferred over citations going back 5 years prior, and then as each year progresses, we've just kind of only submitted, you know, month by month. So, you know, it's been very, very straightforward, very easy for us to maintain. You know, it's been very easy with the customer to show them when the fees have been added. We can show them in the customer account that, you know, you received, you know, multiple letters telling you that you were going to be going to collections if you didn't make payment. Here's what the fee was. And there are many times even where a citation is issued and it's something where for whatever reason we decide to downgrade the citation after the fact or after the appeals process. We'll often make them pay the collection fee amount because, I said we've done our due diligence, we've done what we're supposed to, and CS has done their part in contacting the customer to make them aware that they do have a debt to George Mason. So there are times that we tell customers that even if we're going to downgrade or even dismiss the citation, we make them pay the collection fee part of that. And actually, a lot of customers really don't have a problem with that. They're pretty they're pretty understanding that they were in the wrong, even if they felt that they should not have received the parking ticket in the first place. They can at least respect the fact that we followed a formalized process and that we haven't made anything up, that we've been very transparent in what the fees are and when they've been added, and also that we've been very timely in our notification. So, so again, really over the course of the years, it's become a very easy, consistent process for us. Honestly, I think very little that we really have to do in the collection process, because the process works by itself automatically with the parking citations being transferred over to collections after 60 days. And by that time, the customer has received at least 2 letters, if not 3 letters. Our standard process is, if we know who the customer is because we either have the license plate in our system or they had a permit on the vehicle when the citation was issued, we send a next day email that basically tells the customer, oh, by the way, you were issued, citation yesterday for this violation for this amount. So that way, in case they claim that I didn't receive the citation in the first place, we've provided them notification, and also lets them know they have 5 days to appeal the citation, or 7 days to appeal the citation. We also, what we do is we have an early bird discount for citation payments. So if you make your citation payment within the first 5 days, the balance you owe is decreased. But if it's not made within 5 days or we appeal the citation, it's restored to the full amount. And then what happens is, after 10 days, if you haven't paid your ticket and it's not under appeal, we will add a late fee and send you a letter and an email. And then the same thing happens after 30 days with a letter and an email informing the customer that a late fee has been added, and then with information that if they don't take care of this ticket, it goes to collections. And then again, at the 60-day mark, it just gets transferred over to CS in the flex process. So very straightforward process. It's made the collection process much simpler for us. It's really, as I mentioned, while we're writing less parking citations, we're not losing, our accounts receivable isn't a growing number. We really are taking care of, for the most part, the citations that are issued, that we are getting them resolved, and we're getting payment when payment is needed. So that's really all I had. It's not a whole lot. Again, we have some time for questions here. Again, I think from a customer service perspective and from a financial situation, I can't speak highly enough of using T2's Citation Services product. It's really just an extension of Flex. There's really very little for us to do, and it's really made it easier both for the university as well as the customer. As I mentioned, we get our citation payments, we get our revenue in a much more timely process, and it really is made our lives a lot easier in dealing with customers, especially customers, by the time it's gotten to collections, they've either put it off because they didn't want to deal with it or they've forgotten about it. So to have Citation Services really be very professional in the way they handle their communication with our customers, and also to be able to speak to them about the specific details of the citation, really comes across as very professional, much more legitimate. I said we used to get calls from people that were contacted by our old collection agency, and they would be like, they were very rude, very unprofessional, and even questioning whether they were even authorized by the university to contact them on their behalf. Again, I haven't gotten one complaint I can think of in 8 years about our collection process since we started using T2 Citation Services. So with that, Michael, I'll turn it over if people have questions or comments.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, we have gotten a couple questions in currently. One of the questions is about sending faculty and staff to collections. What was the initial response you got to that, and did you have some negativity to overcome with faculty and staff specifically?
No, we handle, well, we don't have a process similar to students where we place them on hold. We don't have a separate internal process for faculty staff. Any faculty staff that had parking citations that are older than 60 days are sent to collections just the same. And again, it's been handled very consistently with the way we handle students or visitors. You often hear probably a little bit more questions from visitors who sometimes, especially in a university setting where the registered owner might be a parent and it's a son or daughter who might be attending the university, but the ticket winds up being assigned to the registered owner. You often get those calls where, from a parent where, I was contacted by your collection agency and I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't driven on campus in 9 months. And then you ask a few more questions and you find out that their son or daughter had access to their vehicle, and you get a better understanding of what happened. But again, with faculty staff, it's handled just the same. It goes through the collection process. We do not have a process to collect from like using payroll deduction yet. That's something that we've asked about. I know some schools have that process where if you have debt to the university, they'll take it out of your paycheck. We don't have that, but the citation process and the collection process works just the same for faculty and staff.
Josh, another question. How do you handle citations that are assigned to a plate but not to an individual?
So what happens is, so again, as I mentioned, if we know who the customer is, we'll assign it to that customer in Flex. So what happens is when we write a citation and we don't have that license plate in Flex and don't have a record of who it is, we then go to DMV. If it's a Virginia plate, we have access to look up registered owner information directly in Virginia's DMV, and then go ahead and either create a customer account in Flex, or if we find out that that customer account exists in Flex, we'll assign the citation. If it's an out-of-state plate, then we use the Rover process for out-of-state collection of registered owner information. So again, if we don't have a permit, our rule is if there's a permit on the vehicle, that's the primary identification of who the parking citation gets assigned to. And then again, if we have the license plate is attached to a record in Flex, it then goes to that customer. But if not, then it goes to the registered owner. And then again, usually with the access to the Virginia DMV, which for us is the bulk of our customers, we have several staff members with access to DMV lookup, and it really, for the most part, by the next business day, we've looked up the registered owner information, assign the citation in Flex, and then we get the process rolling, get the next day notification, et cetera.
Josh, another question here, asking for a clarification. When you're sending a collection agency, is it you, the university, sending the letter, or is it T2 Citation Services?
Well, we the university send the first several letters. So again, we send a next day notification if we know who the citation belongs to, and then we send a 10-day late letter and then another late letter at 30 days. Everything after that then is done by T2 Citation Services. So they handle, once it's transferred to Citation Services, the collection process at 60 days, they then handle all the communication with the customer. Now again, the customer is always welcome to contact our office, and again, that does happen quite frequently where customer contacts our office and says, hey, I was contacted by collections. I'll either like to take care of this, I don't know what you're talking about, whatever it might be. But it's usually that notification and that communication from Citation Services that triggers the process to take care of the citation. Or again, the customer goes ahead and just makes the payment with Citation Services, or they go online to Flexport and make their payment online.
Another question, Josh, when you went from not having any collections at all to collections, did you give people a notice? And if so, how did you do that and how did people respond?
Well, we always had collections. We as a state agency, we're actually required by the Commonwealth to pursue all debt to the state, we simply changed collection agencies that we use from another agency to T2's Citation Services. I don't believe we had to send out any notification to customers about the change in who the collection agency was. That was just simply done as a contract between parking and CS. So we've always had collections, and there are other entities on campus that still use other collection agencies, the library, student services. So there's other entities on campus that are handling collections their own way, separate from us. As I mentioned, besides the collection process, though, we all report once a year at least all the debt to our tax offset board, who then, if you're a Virginia resident, will take that from your tax return.
Josh, I think I've gotten a couple questions. I don't think everyone is familiar with the term ROVR. Could you explain what that is and what the process is like?
Sure. ROVR, I believe, stands for Retrieval of Vehicle Records, if I'm not mistaken. And it's basically a vehicle registration, okay. Yeah. And it basically again a process where if it's an out-of-state plate, and we need to find out who the registered owner is to be able to assign the citation. It's a process then that works with T2 where we go ahead and again an auto task is run that pulls all of the citations that are unassigned in Flex and sends them out through the ROVR process. And then what happens is on a monthly basis, we get an invoice from T2 for all the lookups that is done through the ROVR process. I forget the actual amount that we pay. I think it's like, might be like $2. It's a pretty nominal amount that we're charged for each lookup that is done through the ROVR process. But it's really just basically handling everything out of state through a process for everything that we can't look up directly, since we can only look up Virginia plates directly in DMV. And for the most part, I know most of the states work pretty well. Once what happens with the ROVR process is it goes out to all the other state DMVs, and then they provide the information back to T2, and then we get it imported back into Flex, and creates the customer, and assigns the citation to the customer. So it's a pretty easy process. Being close to multiple states, we get a lot of out-of-state plates from surrounding states, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, North Carolina. So we do have a pretty sizable out-of-state population, so it certainly helps us. It's again a very nominal fee to have the license plate looked up and provide us the registered owner information.
Josh, I've had a couple of different questions about the fee for the collections, whether it's a flat fee or percentage on each citation. Could you provide a summary of that for us?
Yeah, it's a percentage based. So again, as I mentioned, in our process, the citation is issued, and I'll give $100 as an easy model. So parking tickets issued for $100 for no permit. And then at 10 days, a late fee is added of $15. At 30 days, another late fee is added of $25, and then at 60 days, it's sent to collections. So in that case, the $100 ticket is now $140. When it's transferred over to Citation Services, a percentage of 28% is automatically added on to the balance. So when the customer is notified that they're in collections and that they have a balance due, or if they go online and look at their customer account, they'll see the 28% fee added into their new balance. So the $140 ticket now becomes $179.20. So as I mentioned, when we had our old agency, they would send out a notification that, you owe George Mason $140, and then they would go to make payment, and then they would say, oh, by the way, you owe another $39.20. And it always sounded very arbitrary to the customer. So again, in this case, once it's transferred to Citation Services at the 60-day mark, that 28%, and I don't know if that's differs by customer, that's our percentage, is automatically added to the customer's balance at the time.
Thanks, Josh. And I'll also mention Citation Services does give you the option of using a flat fee as well, so we can build a fee structure that works for your organization. With that, I think that wraps up our questions for today. Thank you all again for joining us, and thank you especially to Josh for presenting today. Again, you can contact Josh if you have any questions, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Hey, Michael, are you there? Michael? Michael?